Hey everyone. In this video, I want to discuss how knowing your worth can come off like arrogance. Same thing with confidence, and a lot of people mistaking that for someone being arrogant and full of themselves. The same thing can happen if you know your worth. Because when you know your worth, you're going to know what you bring to the table enough to be able to speak to it. So you'll be able to know when it's actually somebody else's loss in dating, where they may reject you or find someone they believe is better, but maybe that's not actually the case. And when talking about things like that, or if a potential job decides to pass you up for someone who has more experience, but if you know that you're a hard worker, you're intelligent, you learn new things very quickly, you may be a better person, a better candidate for that position, even though there are people out there with more experience. So the more you know your worth, it can kind of make you come off a bit arrogant, because you know what you bring to the table, and you know when other people or companies or other things like that are missing out by choosing something other than you. And it's really interesting. I was discussing this with a woman on a date a few weeks back, and I was basically just like talking about life and things with her, and over time we were talking about like past dating experiences and whatnot and our prior partners. And I realized when I was talking to her that what I was saying about myself almost could make me sound arrogant. I even brought it up. I was like, I'm not arrogant, but like, I don't know how to say this without almost sounding that way when just talking about the value I know I bring to the table because of the amount of self-work I've put into myself. And it made me realize that there is a huge distinction here between arrogance and just knowing your worth, but a lot of people can't make that distinction. They can't see it because they haven't worked on themselves enough to understand it. Just like with confidence, where a lot of people don't have confidence, so they mistake it for arrogance when the two are very different. And the more you work on yourself, you can easily tell the difference between the two. But many people can't. And that same concept applies to self-worth. The more you know your worth, it may make you come off arrogant to other people, even though you aren't, because there's a huge difference between the two. Being arrogant, actually, most of the time, people who are arrogant don't really know their worth because they have an overinflated sense of self-worth. So they're actually more delusional than knowing their proper worth. Whereas someone who truly knows what they bring to the table, they have a lot of self-awareness and they know their worth, that's different, because they're going to know their pitfalls as well, their weaknesses. They're going to know the aspects of themselves that aren't quite as great. But they still are going to know all the good things that they bring to the table, all their strengths, all the things that make them a great friend to have, or a great partner in a relationship, or a great worker for a job. But yeah, a lot of people they aren't able to make these distinctions. So it's really interesting how the more you know your worth, you may come off a bit arrogant to others. But the good thing is, people who actually work on themselves, who usually are the ones who are surrounding yourself with, they'll be able to tell this distinction. So they'll know even when you're talking about like a strength you have or something good about yourself, and you're just being real, you're just stating a fact, that it's not arrogance. Like, you still know the number twos that you make don't smell sweet. And yeah, so it's just a funny thing, and it's really unfortunate how this is often the case. And in that conversation I was having with that woman on that date, I realized that so few people know what they bring to the table, so few people know their worth, that this is why knowing your worth can make you come off arrogant, because it's just not a normal thing for people to know their worth. Like, if it was more normalized, then obviously this wouldn't happen at all. Like, nobody would confuse it for arrogance because everyone would know what they bring to the table. But that's just not the case. Most people are very insecure. They have a lot of trauma and things they need to heal from the past, and they're just not self-aware at all. So they have no idea of what they bring to the table, or they sell themselves short. They think that they don't bring anything worthwhile to the table. So it just naturally makes it that if you're one of the few people who knows what you bring to the table, and you do have a lot to bring because you're working on yourself, it can make you come off arrogant to them, even though you're not. So yeah, I basically just wanted to discuss this concept in this video, because you're going to have to put up with it if you are someone who's constantly working on yourself and you do know what you bring to the table. It is helpful to, of course, when you're talking about your good qualities to, preface it by saying, this may come off arrogant, but it's not. Like, I know my flaws. This is just me mentioning something good. You may not always have to do that, but with people who don't work on themselves, it may be a helpful way to make sure they don't think you're arrogant. But at the same time, if they make that mistake, oh well, right? Like, you can't try to control the way everyone views you, and sometimes it's not worth it because some people just haven't worked on themselves enough to even really be a worthwhile person to keep around you. So yeah, anyway, this is something you'll have to put up with, and I just wanted to talk about it because it's an interesting concept. But I really hope you've enjoyed this topic and also this background behind me. This is like the Hood Canal in northern Washington, and there's this bridge right here. I don't know what that bridge is, but it's a really interesting one, and it has a ton of traffic. Like, that thing is heavily used, but it's beautiful being here. And let me just give you a sweeping angle so you can see some of the islands here as well. Oh no, I forgot I'm at an angle, so hopefully you can see it decently. But yeah, I don't know what that island is over there, but there's a lot of cool stuff in this area, and it's a beautiful place to be. So yeah, hope you enjoyed the video, hope you enjoyed the background, and I will see you guys in the next one. Arrivederci.